This program is going to be recorded and it will live on the AARP Ohio YouTube page. I will drop the link into the chat again when the opportunity presents, but I am ready to get started. It is so lovely to see you all here this evening. Good evening and welcome to AARP Ohio's Nature's Canvas, a journey to wellness. Thank you all for joining us this evening. My name is Robin Kaltenbach, and I'm the Associate State Director of Advocacy and Community Engagement for AARP, and I'm located in Northeast Ohio. For those of you who may live or have loved ones living in the Southeast, please know that the entire AARP community has you in our thoughts as the devastating storms ravage our communities. We're glad you could join us this evening, whether it's your first time joining an AARP virtual event or you've made it part of your healthy lifestyle routine. We're really happy that you are here with us this evening. Again, continue to drop in the chat where you are calling in from. We'd love to hear where you are in the world. For those of you that joined us last week, thank you again for returning this week. AARP is committed to helping each of us manage our health as we age by providing tools, resources, and information that will help you live a healthy life in mind, body, and spirit. If you joined us last week, we took a dive through the science of smell and explored the connections that our brains make between familiar smells and emotional memories. If you were unable to join us, as I mentioned, you can check out the recording on our YouTube channel, which I will once again drop in the link in the chat. In today's session, our presenter will invite us into her journey of learning to slow down and to be present in appreciating the beauty that surrounds us. Learn how the American robin was her teacher in that journey. Did you know that birdwatching can be done from just about anywhere and is quickly becoming the #1 outdoor activity? At the end of the program, we'll drop a link to an AARP Birdwatching for Beginners video, which will hopefully inspire you to adopt it as a healthy habit. Today's program is a second in a 4-part series, which highlights the various benefits of connecting with nature to help us manage stress and remain active. Before we get started, just a couple of quick things to remind you. If you have questions, you're welcome to hold on to those questions until our presenter indicates that she'd like to open the line, or you can drop them in the chat and I will gladly read your question if you would like as the time presents. If you're not asking a question, please be sure to keep your microphone on mute. If the technology works, we are already recording, so this should show up on our YouTube channel within about 48 hours. It is now my pleasure to introduce our presenter, Danette Rushboldt. Danette is both a naturalist and an interpretive artist for a local park district in Ohio, where she conducts a variety of nature drawing programs for children and adults. Danette received a Sustainability Changemaker Award in Akron for her repurposed artwork and sustainable programming at the park. Danette has several pieces of work on display, both privately and publicly, including the Summit County Courthouse, Akronia Gallery, Akron Art Museum, FA Cyberling Nature Realm, and Lake Hospital. Additionally, Danette's students' work from a Nature Journaling for Wellness program became an exhibit installation at FA Cyberling Nature Realm. Please join me in welcoming Danette Rushboldt.
Oh, yay. Hello, everyone. I'm so glad that you are here. And I see, oh my gosh, somebody is actually coming in to us from Hawaii. What? I don't even know what time it is over there, but yay, you. Like Robin said, my name is Danette, and I have discovered this journey to wellness. My training is as an artist. I went to art school, but I've always had a connection to nature. And as I talked last time, people of our generation, that we grew up outside, right? So we have a deep connection to nature already because it was our playground, it was our babysitter, it was our place to go and just explore and learn about ourselves and the world around us. So I feel like I'm with the right group of people here in saying that we probably are the last generation to have the most amazing childhood growing up. So when I was presenting programs at the park district where I work to bridge the two, the wellness aspect of nature as well as the creativity that can happen. There's so many different ways of experiencing nature. And I wanted to make sure that instead of just hiking and being outside, that people could experience nature in a way that is, different. So I do drawing programs and journaling programs and wellness programs, so that people can experience the parks in a variety of ways. And in the beginning, Robin had said that birding has become the most popular activity in the parks. And lots and lots of people feel a connection to birds and birding. And I won't ask all who's a birder here, but today we're going to cover one of my favorite birds, and know that we are going to do a drawing lesson at the end. So hopefully you're feeling confident to be able to hang in there with us and create a beautiful bird. So this one is titled about the ordinary things, the things that we don't necessarily think of as, ooh, this is a bird on my bird list if you're a birder or anything like that. So I begin my lesson with a PowerPoint and quotes, because sometimes, again, I like the visual arts, but sometimes written words can just say so much in ways that just can touch us. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Let's see if I can do it. Okay, Robin, can I get a thumbs up if you see my PowerPoint? Woohoo! All right. So if you have a pencil and paper, keep it handy with you to jot some of these things down. I do really believe in journaling. I believe in the ability to write things down or document things, because it gives it value and validation. When I was teaching small children, I would ask a question like, what is your favorite color? And then I had a big pad of paper and I wrote, Johnny's favorite color is blue. And boy, oh boy, they puffed up it, because it meant something to have things written down. So please take the time to write some of these things down. Some of the things that, maybe you want to learn more about it later on. I do encourage you to do a deeper dive into some of the subjects that touch you. But when you're searching the internet, it's really important that you use a website that ends in a .org or a .edu. Those are the ones that have the most credible and researched information out there. So you might want to check those. Not that a .com isn't a great resource, but just double check your .com with a .org or a .edu for some information, especially when it comes to wildlife and animals and things that are going on out there. So this first quote says, excellence is doing ordinary things extraordinarily well. Right? I mean, that's amazing. And I can't say enough about how that gives us all power to be extraordinary if we can look at things like this. Okay, so I'll give you a couple of minutes to jot that one down if you want to. If you want to wait until the video comes out and copy it from there, you can do that as well. Okay. Some of my students in my other classes, they'll actually take a photo of their screen as I'm telling them things, because where I work, we don't have the option to videotape our sessions. So they really have to get all their information right as it's happening. So here's the next one. Find magic in the mundane and the world will never seem ordinary. Find magic in the mundane and the world will never seem ordinary. Now, I love this quote. Not a super big fan of the the photo, although I do love a big city. I think we can do a lot. Cities are awesome places for hustle and bustle and finding things and doing things, but you always have to find your little spot of nature, even in the middle of a big city, whether it's you put a bird feeder out your window, or you look out the window, or you notice the clouds or insects. There's always something out there. Okay, nature-based. So find magic in the mundane and the world will never seem ordinary. The next one, this one, I love this one. Anyone can love a rose, but it takes a lot to love a leaf. It's ordinary to love the beautiful, but it's beautiful to love the ordinary. So, yeah, I think that's pretty amazing little quote right there. As I said, if you join me in the last class, I'm not a writer, but boy, do I appreciate when things are written in a way that just puts it all perfect, just makes it perfect. And I feel like that's what happens with this one. Okay. So I'm going to move on. So here we have the robin, right? And I don't mean my wonderful AARP host here, Miss Robin, but the robin, if you're a birder, a true birder, you love spring migration, fall migration, when the waterfowl are coming in, the warblers are coming in from South America and all parts south. Ooh, they get all excited and they actually develop this thing called warbler neck, where they're looking up in the trees so much that they get a creak in their neck. So it's amazing at how many people really get behind these birds in the spring and the fall. But I was driving home from work one day, and there's a whole row of crabapple trees on this particular section, and there had to have been 50, 60 robins in this tree. And this was in wintertime, so there were no leaves on the trees. There were just the little crab apples hanging in there. And these robins were amazing, and they were beautiful in mass. It was incredible. Oftentimes my regular students will ask me, well, how did you come up with this? Or how did you decide we were going to draw this week or whatever? And I'm telling you, every time something hits me. And for this particular lesson that I provided was about the robins. And I thought, how could I even think that something this beautiful was ordinary? So then it just started the wheels turning about what we consider ordinary and what we sort of just don't even see after a while. And not only with animals and nature, but think about your people in your life too. Who do we sort of just assume they're going to be there, or they're going to be in a good mood, or they're going to be in a bad mood, or whatever, and we sort of put them in certain things, and we forget that everything can be extraordinary. So we're going to delve into the beautiful robin. So robins are very popular birds, both here and in North America, as well as Europe. In fact, it's the national bird of Great Britain. This is the little guy right here on the right. That is the Great British, I almost said baking show because I'm addicted to that thing, but the bird, the robin that is native to Great Britain. And this is our guy right here, the American robin. So they're cousins, a little bit different. And people might say, oh, look at how pretty he is. And why is that? It's because we've seen this guy a million times. But if we really stop to notice him, he's just as beautiful. Fun fact, and I love a good fun fact. I got a bunch of them for us in this session. So in the past, robins were killed for their meat. I find that, like, I'm not a big eater, but robins are kind of small. I couldn't even imagine how many I would have to eat at dinner in order to fill myself up. But they are protected now in the U.S. Thanks to the Migratory Bird Act. And this final installation of the Migratory Bird Act happened in 1972, where most of us were running around in our bell bottoms and our stringy, greasy, long hair. But good things were happening in the 70s. We all know that. And one of them was the Migratory Bird Act. The male robin sings the most beautiful tune. It's often the first bird heard in the morning and the last bird heard as the sun sets. Now, sometimes, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. It's maybe that nice fall day, or a spring day when we have the windows open because the weather is amazing, and you start to hear the daggone birds. So sometimes it might not be as precious, but those birds, they are the workhorses out there as far as birds go. And I do have their call, which I'm hoping. There we go. And one more. Right? I'm sure we've all heard that call before. So now I like to give you guys homework. So this is one in the morning. See if you recognize the call of the robin, the American robin. They're all over the country. So not 100% sure about Hawaii, but I believe the rest of our states have these birds in them. So listen with purpose. Okay, that's something that when we're out in nature, it's wonderful just to absorb things. But there's other times when it's nice to have purpose. So when you're out there, listen to see if you can find it. Now, I just played it, and a lot of you are probably like, I forgot what it is. So there's something called bird mnemonics. This is something that birders came up with to help people, because oftentimes you'll hear the birds before you ever see the birds. So these are just some common bird mnemonics for some of the local birds that we have here in Ohio, and I believe fairly across the United States. This first one over on the left is the black-capped chickadee, and the black-capped chickadee is so brazen. It likes to just say its name. It goes chickadee dee 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 dee, chickadee dee 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 dee. And a fun fact about them is that the more dee dee dees at the end means the more stressed they are. So it means there's some kind of danger, some kind of something going on that makes him a little worked up. And I do say him because majority of the birds out there that sing are boys. So the boys do all the yakking when it comes to bird species. And what are they saying? There's a birder in our area. Her name's Lisa Rainsong. She breaks down the calls into music so that people can understand if you're musically inclined. And she says all they're really saying is mine, 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 just like the movie Finding Nemo. And they're saying either this is my girl, my territory, my home, my stuff. So that's really what they're saying. They just say it in different ways. The American robin, I'm going to play the call again just to see if you can hear, if you can think of cheer up, cheerily, cheerio. That's the call. So it's kind of nice, right? It's a fun one. The tufted titmouse, which is the bird on the in the center, that one makes the Peter, 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 Peter call. And the blue jay is like the chickadee, kind of brazen, says its name, J, 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 J. And the American crow, says caw, caw, caw. We all have heard that one before. So I'm going to try to go backwards now. And now when you listen to the American robin, see if you can hear any of that cheer up, cheerily, cheerio. Okay. So just see if you can hear it. I have to tell you, I tried to learn bird calls. Where we live, there's the Ohio Department of Natural Resources has this CD, this slick CD, and this book that they send with it. And you can listen to the CDs and it tells you the calls, and you look at the picture and it tells you the calls. I cannot hear a lot of it. but I do like the end of that. So I like to listen to that, and there are a few. So just know if it's early in the morning and it sounds a little chipper and cheery, chances are it's a robin. And don't be mad at yourself or worked up about yourself if you can't notice the differences. I tell my young students when we go walking around outside, just stop and listen and see how many different birds you hear. You may not know what they are, where they are, but just see, because they do have different calls. And know that you're out there in the middle of an amazing bird conversation. Okay. And we all know what they're saying, right? Mine, 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 mine. All right. So the male and the female robin look surprisingly similar, which is not usual in birds. Mostly the males are a lot more vibrant and pretty, and because they're the ones that have to attract the female, they're the ones that have to get the girls to like them. So they don these beautiful feathers, and they have to scare away predators by flashing their beautiful colors in order to, distract them so that the female can stay safe while she sits on the nest. And she's usually more drab, more, not as vibrant and pretty, which, as you can see, this one over here, I think you guys can see it. Can you guys see that on your screen? Or am I covering it up with my thing? Okay, you can see it. Okay. So she's just a little bit duller than the male, but she still has the same sort of color palette or pattern. Okay. Fun fact, because I love them. Although the comic book superhero Robin was inspired by an illustration of Robin Hood, a later version in the comic books had his mother nicknaming him Robin because he was born on the first day of spring. And we love that. We love that spring is, we think of robins. Oh, when the robins come out, it's like, well, hold on a minute. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Robins are here year round. They don't go away and then magically come back in the spring like maybe we were taught a long, long time ago. Robins are the harbingers of spring, blah, blah, blah. But here's an interesting tidbit that I bet most of you did not know. Robins do live here in places like Ohio, but in the wintertime, the Ohio robins can migrate to places further south. Northern birds, say in Ohio, the ones that are up in Canada, migrate in. So we constantly have robins out there. They're just not the same robins, which I found that fascinating when I learned this. So, again, ordinary robins, blah, blah, blah. No, they're not. They do. So all of these that you're seeing are, they're just visiting. So I think that's exciting. And you might hear my bird Tiki. She likes to chit chat as well. So here we're going to do a little bit of a thing. If you want to type it in the chat box. There are 3 states in the United States that have robins as their state bird. If you think you know, or you live in one of those states, 3 states that have a robin as their state bird. If you can just name one in the chat box, we'll give you guys a couple of minutes. And spoiler alert, I'm just going to throw it out there. It's not Ohio. Nope. Ohio has the cardinal, the northern cardinal, as our state bird. So see if you can. And Miss Robin, you're going to have to read those off for me because I cannot access them.
We've got a Georgia with a question mark.
Ooh, okay. Is that it? Come on.
So far.
Oh my goodness. Make a guess.
Say, while everybody is thinking, Danette, one of the things I took ornithology and love birds, and bird sounds was just so hard to me, but there is an app that I have with me every time I'm outside. And if I hear a bird, I open it up and it'll tell me what that bird is. It's the Cornell Lab. Merlin app. So I love that. In fact, I know somebody's from Alaska. I recently went to Alaska and I was so excited to get some live birds through that app that I would have never known otherwise. So yeah, the
Ex-
Merlin app.
exactly. Because it does, I was like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me that I can't figure these birds out? And you start to feel bad. And walking out in nature became sort of a not so fun. I was like, gosh, what's wrong with me that I can't do this? So, like Robin, don't frustrate yourself. Go and find a way of doing it, whether it's the mnemonics that I shared with you, an app that she gave you, so you guys can go and feel good about being out in nature, right?
Okay, so we've got some more guesses. And yes, I will put the name of the app in the chat. Connecticut is a guess. We've got Wisconsin, Michigan, and another Connecticut.
Oh, well, you got it, my friends. The American robin is a state bird from Connecticut, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Woo, woo, woo. So if you are from one of those states, good job for picking this beautiful creature as your state bird. And Georgia can only wish. I'm not sure what Georgia's bird is, but that was a very good guess. And thank you for playing along with that. It is fun to see, and you can do maybe some research on why did the American robin become the state bird, why did the northern cardinal become the state bird for Ohio. See if you can do a little deep dive in that and see if that is something that interests you. So robins have a sweet tooth. They like to indulge in fruits and berries. In the summer, they eat insects along with berries, earthworms, spiders, snails. But in the winter, their diet is mostly fruit and wild berries. They're especially drawn to crab apples, which, again, as I was driving home that day and I saw 50, 60, 70 of them in mass just in these crab apples. So I do encourage you when you're in wintertime, especially when the leaves are gone from the trees and we're like, it's really, there's nothing to look at. My goodness, there are beautiful things in the trees feeding on those crab apples. So see if you can spot some regular, ordinary robins in your neighborhood. Drunk robins? Well, yes. Robins will sometimes flock to fermented berries. By ingesting large quantities, they appear to be drunk and exhibit behaviors such as falling over while walking. And berries, as we know, are full of sugar. It's what enables fruit to be turned into alcohol through the process of fermentation. Berries are a great food source for birds when they're nice and ripe, but after they begin to ferment, they turn into little sacks of wine. So bird livers can't keep up with all the alcohol, and it shows. They fly into windows, flop around on the ground, and they're not afraid of approaching humans or other predators. And the bird on the bottom is another one that can indulge, let's say, in fermented berries. That is one of my favorite birds, along with the robin. That is a cedar waxwing, which I think it looks like a superhero with that crazy streaking that goes across his eyes. So yeah, I bet you didn't know that we got a little tipsy birds out there towards the end of winter. So be on the lookout for some drunk robins. Robins are known for their running and stopping behavior. It's one of their main characteristics. So if a robin sees the benefits of walking, so should we. And again, this goes back to that stuff that we, the ordinary, the mundane, the blah, blah, blah. About, I don't know, maybe it was a year ago, another study was out. Famous, I don't know, hospital system did this study on walking, and they determined that walking is really good for you. Right? I mean, come on. We know that. Sometimes we think we have to do something bigger than these ordinary things. We have to join a gym. We have to lift weights. We have to do Pilates. We have to do yoga. We have to do this and we have to do all those things are wonderful. But let's not forget the ordinary things like walking. Now, these guys, remember, in their summer diet is worms. So they are constantly walking along the ground looking for worms. That might be where the early bird gets the worm. The early bird being that bird that we heard at 4 o'clock in the morning that was keeping us up. He's walking around looking for worms, and not just looking for them with their eyes. You'll often see them cocking their head to see where those worms are, and they walk to go get them. That's where they are. They're in the ground, so they might as well. So I think that's amazing. Now, I do want to reread some of the quotes from the beginning because the first one, excellence is doing ordinary things extraordinarily well, right? Ordinary things like walking. Walking is so beneficial to our bodies. It keeps our bodies limber so that we can continue the blood flow, which helps our brains and everything else. And then find magic in the mundane, and the world will never seem ordinary. And I had to look up the word mundane just because I wanted to see how it was defined. I know what it means, but how did, Merriam-Webster define mundane? And it says lacking interest, excitement, or dull, right? So all those things that we just learned about robins, I don't think any of those things pertain. I think they are extraordinary if we allow ourselves to think that way about them. Okay, so just as a little exercise, what things are you taking for granted? People, situation, things that seem so ordinary, so common that we overlook them. So I don't need you to share or anything like that, but just contemplate that. What do we see on a day-to-day basis every day that it almost becomes invisible? So see if you could just take a little bit of time and really look at those things. And I bet they're not going to seem so ordinary or common or dull or uninteresting as you may think. Okay. Now, before we get to our drawing lesson, which is what we're going to be doing here in a couple of minutes, does anybody have any questions? Now we can take, the first 5 or 6 questions that you can pop into the chat box about anything that you learned today. Again, it doesn't say Google on my forehead. I don't know everything, but I might be able to lead you in the right direction if there is something that you would like to know more about or you were confused about as we went through the PowerPoint. So if you have any questions, just type them into the chat, and then Robin will read them to me and we can go over them before our drawing lesson.
No questions yet, but I did see a comment earlier that I thought was valuable to bring to the surface. It's about growing plants, and when you do grow plants, you begin to see how the plants feel, whether they need more sun, more water. You check their leaves and see, are they droopy? So I thought that was really an interesting comment about plants. I thought that I could never keep a plant alive, and I'm like learning how to do it, and it's such an amazing feeling to care for that.
I couldn't agree more. And again, that is nature. You bring nature into our homes. A house plant is a you have to care for it. You have to figure out what it needs. And it's not an easy thing. We did not get a user manual when, however you want to feel humans became on the planet or evolve with the planet. Nobody gave us a little book, said, here, this is how you do all of these things. We have to learn them. And we learn by observing. We learn by paying attention, by being purposeful observers. So again, that's why when you take a walk outside, make sure that you have a focus, just be purposeful in something. It doesn't mean it's like school or anything like that. Just enjoy, but all of a sudden, stop and listen to the birds. Listen to the variety that you might hear that maybe you wouldn't have heard if you didn't stop for that moment and pay attention to it.
So Darlene's curious about drunk bears. So if old bear is for men, are there other animals like bears also walking around drunk?
Well, the interesting thing about bears, and again, without having done research on drunk bears, I don't think so, because the bears hibernate, or, well, technically bears don't hibernate. Maybe the males do, but the females actually give birth during that dormant period in the wintertime. So the berries they've already consumed haven't gotten to that point where they're actually little wine sacks, like the quote said, or the one thing said. So I don't think we have drunk bears running around. But that might be something you want to research and see, right?
I don't see any other questions coming into the chat.
Okay, well then we're going to get going. I have a couple of photos that I want to share with you. And when you're drawing, it's important that you, number one, especially if you're a beginner, that you know your limitations, know what you're comfortable with. So these are two samples of things that I would steer you away from when you want, as a reference. When you want to draw something, especially a bird or something that moves a lot, drawing from nature is not an easy thing to do. In fact, all of those Audubon things that you can conjure up, those beautiful illustrations in the Audubon books, those were made in like the 1820s to 1830s, I believe. And in order to draw them, the birds were killed. And that sounds, oh my gosh, but how else were they going to learn about them? So they killed them, they put them in position so that it would look natural, and it was a study. They were studying these birds, and then the prints were able for regular folks to be able to go and be able to maybe make a connection with that bird. Because remember, photography wasn't big back then. There was no photography. So this was the only way to really start documenting these things. So we have the luxury of using photographs, and you can Google American robins and get a whole host of reference out there. But the one on the left with the bird flying and those wings are just, what a great looking photo. But if you really start to look at it, if you were going to draw it, and this is what I'd like you to do if you do enjoy drawing from reference material, like from wildlife, look at the feet on him. They look almost pterodactyl or too big, and we get it as a photograph. We believe that that's the way the feet look. But if you try to replicate that in a drawing, it would be like, that person doesn't really know how to draw bird feet, because they are unusual in that position. The one on the right, the one where he's standing on the ground, it looks like he's almost on a stick, like his two little legs are stuck in one spot and they sort of splay out. That is, again, not a really nice looking position to have those feet in. And remember, feet and hands are really hard things to draw. So these two references are things that I would probably not recommend that you do. One of the things that this robin on the right actually showcases, and one of the things I really want you to pay attention to whenever you draw anything, is what are the identifying characteristics? What makes this a robin and not a cedar waxwing like I had in the last video or the last slide? It has an eye ring, and I cannot get my cursor to move, but the eye ring is that white around its eye. Its beak is long and slender, and it's yellow. It has a white streaky patch below its beak. It has a blackish, dark gray head and back and wings. Its chest is that beautiful rusty color. And something that maybe you didn't know is they have a white butt. Their butt feathers are as white as snow. And this guy on the left, you can see his little bucket out there as he is flying. And I don't know very many taxonomy names for animals because personally, that's not something that, again, I have so much room in my brain and I don't have enough for that. But I did remember this one because the taxonomy name for this particular species of bird is Turdus migratorius. Turdus migratorius. Now, you say that to any group of, 10 to 12-year-olds, and they are rolling on the floor. That's the one thing that they're going to remember is the Turdus migratorius. So that is their taxonomy name. So here is the ones that we are going to be drawing from. We're actually going to begin with the guy on the right. He's in a beautiful position. His feet are exposed, but they're not difficult for us to navigate through and to draw. The bird on the left has more of the, characteristics, and a lot of the feet are hidden. Woohoo! I always tell my students when you're selecting reference, really look at what your strengths are and what you feel comfortable about. And remember, especially with the robin, they like to hang out in the grass. So you can draw them in the grass. That means their feet are not showing at all. Okay, so choose your reference carefully. And in the one on the left, you would add those berries in, maybe make a few more to cover up the rest of that foot over there so it looks purposeful, like you're not trying to get away from drawing the feet in, but you don't necessarily have to because the leaves and the berries are hiding it for you. So I am going to, whoops.
Danette, we do have a question in the chat. Janice was wondering if you are saying that each species of bird has the same markings, like all robins look the same.
All robins don't look the same, but all robins have the same identifying characteristics, like an eye ring, that color pattern. That's part of how scientists can put them into certain species and certain categories. And that's the way they did it up until DNA. And then all of a sudden, when that door opened, they were able to break them down and separate them out even farther. But yes, all robins, American robins, have an eye ring. It may not be super big. It might be broken. It's not going to look the same on every bird, but they're going to have the same marking. So that was a great question. So thank you for bringing that one up. So when I begin a drawing lesson with my students, it's really important that we understand about relationships. Now I'm just going to bring my screen down a little bit because I have printed up that bird that we're going to draw today along with, whoops, this guy here. But whenever you're going to draw anything, it's important that you determine relationships. And you break things down into simple shapes: circles, triangles, squares, ovals. Are those lines wavy lines? Are they jaggedy lines? Are they diagonal lines? Does this shape look like it's in front of this one? Is this one bigger than this one? These are all things that you need to navigate through when you're selecting something to draw. So the first thing, I like to draw with a pen. And I know a lot of you are like, what? Brand new artists do more erasing than they do drawing. So to use a pen, we've eliminated that, right? So you can't erase. So if I was to look at this, and I was just to isolate the shape of the head, if I was to break that down into simple shape, I would say a circle, maybe an oval. The body would be about the same shape, circular, but obviously it's bigger than the head. And where does it fall in relationship to the rest of the head? Now, one thing that I want you to be aware of is not only relationships, but how things go together. If we looked at this beak, and again, we want to make sure that we're honoring this bird. So we're going to draw a nice lengthy beak. But if I was to draw a line straight down, does that hit the bird's body at all? No. So if in our drawing, we've decided that, oh boy, something's off here, fix it. One of the things that I want to tell you is take your time, build the foundation. You can't put the curtains on the windows of the house that isn't built yet. That's one of my go-to lines that I tell my students. You can't start adding a bunch of detail until you have a solid foundation. Because once you start adding, ooh, these cute little feathers, I'm just going to put them all in there. And then you step back from it and the eye is in the total wrong place. Okay, so have a good solid drawing done before you start adding any detail. So far we have the head, the body, the tail. I would say that's maybe like a little triangle. We have a friend coming in. And the beak, again, is maybe like another triangle. Another thing that my students get wrong are the feet. If we were to draw a line straight down, where do those feet lie, right? Or better yet, go straight up. It's right at the edge of that eye, right? Sometimes we put the legs on and we don't put them in the right spot and it looks like that bird's going to tumble over. Another thing is relationships. Like clearly we know that this is a small circle and this is a larger one. But if I start and I do my measurements, I don't get a ruler out. It's not about rulers. I measure from here to here and then here and here. So I got about two heads in the body. Does everybody see that relationship? And that's how I determine that. Same thing with the beak. How long is the beak? Woo, if we did a relationship, it's about as long as that front leg. Don't think that these measurements are correct for every reference, though. It's the position of that photograph, the position of the bird, the position of the photographer, and all those things. So you have to make determinations based on the way your reference looks. Okay, that's really, really important. So circles, triangles, squares, ovals. I like to begin my students to draw with a 1 minute drawing, but we're going to bypass that. And I'm going to start just quickly. Get my light over here. Here's my reference. Here's my pad of paper. So I'll begin with the head. And when I draw, even with a pen, I give myself several options, okay? The body is underneath. Just gonna do a circle. I'm gonna start to make the beak comes up. Okay, the eye, I'm just gonna put it about here. I'm just quickly getting things on the paper. You can't make corrections to something that isn't there. Know that. So get something on the paper. So now we're going to start doing those measurements. This is how big I have the head. So bingo, the body has to end somewhere around here. I don't know if you guys can see that very well. I'm going to turn my lamp. Oops, too much. Okay, so that's about the length of the body. The head, the beak is about, I use my reference here, about as big as this head, right? So the beak is gonna end here. Bring it, the beak is in the head, not floating in front of it. The head goes up. And now I'm just fine tuning this from it looking like a snowman to now it looking like a robin. I'm going to connect that. See, right now there's this big gap here. I'm just going to flesh it out, flesh this out. So it makes that neck. Remember that neck with that white pattern on it? The body comes out, not too far. There's a wing over there, right here. Kind of just sticks out. The eye. And I keep moving around the piece. There is this collar here. Bring that down. And again, you're just making quick little lines here because you may have to make some adjustments, right? So let's get that eye. That's about the right spot. Don't forget that eye ring. And remember, they're unique to each bird, but it is there. Whenever you draw an eye, you leave a little dot of white in there. We call that eye shine. Light eyes float in liquid. So you want to make sure that you indicate that eye shine like that. So I'm going to go up and around. And now I'm starting to really get this guy looking pretty terrific. That leg starts, remember that relationship? It's about as long as the beak. And I'm drawing this upside down. So I'm going to take a peek at it to see exactly what I ended up with. But because I am using relationships, it doesn't matter if your reference is upside down. In fact, sometimes it's to your benefit to have your reference upside down because psychologically, it changes that bird into an object so you're not as worried about it as you're drawing it. Okay. So now I'm just going to get these toes in. 3 toes in the front, 1 toe hooking around the back. This leg is more about here. And I'm going to turn this over just so I can take a little peek at it and see what I got going on here. Always take a moment to look at your drawing, compare it to your reference, and see how close you got. Okay, let's add some of these identifiers. Let's add that cap, that head. So we're really going to make that sort of like a collar here. When you go to draw feathers, birds have like 7,000 feathers or something like that. You certainly aren't going to draw all of them, but you're going to indicate them with the way you stroke your pen. Up here, these go up and away. So you're just going to indicate up and away with some tiny lines. The head feathers are very small. So you're just going to go nice short lines as you work your way around. Don't forget to leave that patch in the front with that white. Okay. And you're just going to start working your way out and around. Okay. Adding your darks. I wouldn't go and do too much fancy schmancy work with the feathers and this wings. Okay. Feathers have purpose. They're either there to keep the bird warm, or they're there to help the bird fly. They all have purpose. All 7,000 of them are very important. So you honor that bird by creating it to the best of your ability, right? Shade in all of that dark where it's dark as you're going around. Paying attention again to those identifiers and not closing them up. And you just keep going and going and going and going. And before you know it, you've created yourself a robin. And by adding those identifiers, you can not color this in at all. As long as you got the eye ring, you got the pattern right, you got the length of the beak right, that chin area, and people that know birds are going to know that that is the American robin. So I know that was a quick lesson, but I think our time is up. Yep. So if you don't have any questions, I think we can let you go, but you will be able to, again, view the drawing lesson. It's all about relationships. So if you can figure out what relationships you need to make in the drawing, then you're going to just do so much better with it. So I hope you are inspired by ordinary things and that you're inspired to try your hand at drawing and can pick out some reference that is helpful to you. And thank you, Nikki, for the kind words. She says it's so nice. And I thank you so much for that. And I hope that you, some of us had big afros in the 70s. Oh, yeah. I was one with that greasy long hair, but I see this being recorded. She started late. I have heard in the morning. They've heard the birds. Thank you, Georgia, Connecticut. Let's see. Merlin app is on there.
Thank you so much, Danette. Thank you all for joining us this evening. I did drop a link in the chat to watch an AARP video about the benefits of nature, specifically with bird watching and how it can be really an easy entry point into connecting with nature. Just as a reminder that birding can be done from anywhere. So even if you can't get outside, you can watch it from your windows. I really appreciated all that you've offered us today, and particularly the importance of tapping into your creative side by learning how to draw birds and observing things that are around us that may maybe go unnoticed or underappreciated. If you enjoyed this presentation, like I said, we have 2 more sessions. Next week, we're going to be talking about home sweet home and the different ways that animals use their home to help them live and thrive in their environment. We're going to talk a little bit about your home and how you may want to modify your home as you age. So hopefully we'll see you again next week, and look forward to seeing you again.
Yay! Everybody have a beautiful evening or morning wherever you are in Hawaii. I don't know what time it is there, but thank you all for joining me.